I made the perfect Spyderco Smock. Hello everyone, this is Chris with the Wyvern Kodiak channel, and I'm going to give Sam some relief on content creation today and take you on a journey of my favorite, or one of my favorites for sure, production knives. And it's not because of how Spyderco sent the smock to me, but really how I finished it. I made 7 very intentional modifications to this, and by the end of the video, I'll tell you the ones that made the biggest difference. Before we actually get into opening the knife though, let me tell you how I got to finding the smock. And that really started with the very first knife that when I started carrying, that I carried in my pockets daily, was a PM2. And my original purchase was this S110V. It came with the Blurple or blue G10 scales. And I'll tell you what, every single pair of pants, or my right front pocket on every single pair of pants, was absolutely frayed because of that G10 sliding in and out. So when I bought all new pants, I ended up buying a new set of Minton Boss zirconium scales to put on it. And that made it a lot heavier in my pocket, but the weight didn't bother me so much. But what I began to get aggravated with is, as my daily carry expanded, the size of this knife in my pocket became problematic. I've got really large hands already, and so getting my hands in and out of my pocket is already difficult. And when this is taking up so much real estate, it made it hard to get to other things. And on a daily basis, I typically carry 2 phones, one for work and one personal, and I'm on 24/7, so I've always got 2 phones on me. I carry a titanium pin, my wallet, my keys. My keys have a small flashlight on them, and I usually carry a small multi-tool as well. So getting my hand in and out of my pocket, again, 2XL gloves, was difficult with trying to move around this big thing. So I started doing some research, and Sam and I went on a road trip, and we went to a knife store, and I purchased this Benchmade 940 Osborne, and man, that absolutely solved the problem that I was trying to solve. This fiber, or this carbon fiber, it slid right in and out of my pocket. It takes up a fraction of the space that the PM2 took up. So it absolutely solved my problem, but it created a new one. Anytime that I was breaking down boxes, opening packages, opening envelopes, cutting rope, the things that I might do on a day-to-day basis, this geometry just wasn't good for the slicing that I was used to, that the PM2 offered me. It's thick up at the spine. It gets there very, very rapidly, and so you're wedging through a lot of material as opposed to slicing through it. And so that would sent me right back to the drawing board. And that's when I found the smock. And this was the first one that I purchased. The original one, or it did have carbon fiber scales on it when I bought it, and I upgraded to these titanium handles. And as you can see, there's a lot of wear on this. I've carried and used this knife a bunch. And so when I picked this up, it immediately went into my pocket. It fit the bill because it carried like the 940, but man, that hollow grind, that even slicier than the PM2, and I absolutely love the performance of it. So for the longest time, this was my daily driver. And this is the knife that also got me into fidgeting. I would sit at my desk and fidget around with it, and I could thumb flick it. You can finger flick it. You have the flipper tab. So 3 different deployment methods. I just sat and played with it all the time, and I really, really did enjoy it. So much, in fact, that I bought a second one. And when I bought the second one, what led me to that is this was in crew wear. And so the original's in S30. And so when it came out in crew wear, I jumped on the opportunity to purchase that, and then decided that I was going to make this an experimental knife. And the experiment really wasn't to see how many aftermarket parts I could put on this one, but what it was for is really an experiment to answer a question. And was that, could I build the perfect smock? And well, let's find out. Before I open the knife, let's take a look at everything that I've changed on it first of all. First thing is this Lynch Northwest pocket clip. I love the deep carry clip. I love Lynch. It goes in and out of the pocket super smooth. It holds well for me. It feels good when my hand's in cutting position. Just really, really like what they've done here. I've also put in the AWT or Applied Weapons Technology hardware. I went with the stainless steel option because I didn't really need titanium on this, and just wanted it blacked out. And I figured that with the color up against these scales, with the blade finish as well as with the pocket clip, it would really help aesthetically versus the satin hardware that came on it. And this is probably the modification that made the smallest difference, right? It doesn't help with the function of the knife in any way. It doesn't make it a better cutter. It doesn't make the action any better. But what it does do is make it more aesthetically appealing, and it brings everything together, as one unit here. The modification that surprised me the most, though, is the jimping. And if you've watched our channel before, you already know something about me. I love texture. If this happens to be the first time watching our content, let me introduce myself. My name is Chris, and I have a problem. I love indexing. I love being able to put my hands in place, and intuitively, the knife is designed where intuitively I just grab exactly where it's meant to be grabbed, and everything goes into place. I don't like to have to look to where I'm supposed to be putting something. I really just like, the predictability of my knives. And so when I first got a hold of my Spyderco, I loved the jimping here. I thought it was absolutely fantastic, and they nailed it. I would have liked to have seen one or two more just to bite, some more. But the flipper tab itself, it's so smooth. And earlier, I don't know if you noticed, I went to deploy and I slipped right off, which happens about 1 in every 5 times that I go to deploy this knife. Maybe a little more than that, or a little less than that, excuse me. But I love the shape of this. I love the size of it. I love the leverage that you have on it. I just wish that there was something a little bit more there to grab onto. When I picked this one up, what I did was I decided I was going to add some jimping on mine, and I'm certainly no machinist, and I didn't lay this out with precision the way that a machinist would, and I didn't use any templates, and I didn't carefully fix the blade anywhere. I basically eyeballed it, grabbed a Dremel, committed to it, and started removing material. And once you start removing material, you have to commit to it, right? After that first cut, I was all in. There's no undo button. But as you look here, not all the jimps are perfectly parallel, and for the most part, I think that I got them about the same depth, but not perfect. I would say from a craftsmanship standpoint, I'd give myself a C plus or a B minus. From a functionality, though, man, that's an A. I flip that open, and it just jumps out, and so I'm really, really pleased. The simplest mod on here turned out to be my absolute favorite. When we open up the blade, I did a stone wash, then an acid etch, and then another stone wash. And this didn't come out the way that I wanted it to, but I'm not aggravated or upset with it. I did learn a lot in the process. This was the second blade that I've done this with, and the first one was a Vosteed Porcupine in 154 cm. And this came out a little bit different. There's a lot more wear on the blade, a lot more long scratches that I didn't get with the 154. And I haven't quite figured out if that was blade geometry, if that's just the difference between crew wear and 154, if that is perhaps in the blade geometry. I use the same media, some ceramic media. So, same. I built a small tumbler and I threw it in there for both of them. So, I've learned a ton in this process. So, sometimes I think that's the big valuable piece of, or the most valuable piece of a project isn't necessarily in the result, but in what you learn throughout that process, and the how it makes you inquisitive to want to go and do more. One of the things that I did as well with this is I swapped out the bearings for skiffs and I removed the second detent ball. And so this thing really became ultra fidgety once I did that. The blade falls shut. I don't have to sling it closed like I have to do with this one. It will just drop shut, and it's so smooth with those skiffs. So this now is one that I want to reach for all the time. Every time that I pick it up, I just flick and flick and flick. And if you've ever flicked a hawk lock, this doesn't feel the same as the hawk talon, don't get me wrong, but my jimping bites like the hawk talon jimping does. And so it took a long time to get the hawk out of my hands, and now this one all day long I'm flipping back and forth. The final thing that I did wasn't mechanical and it wasn't cosmetic, but I did reprofile the blade to 15.5 degrees. And so went up to an 800 grit, really a 600. I just did some very few light passes at 800, and then some very light strapping. And this thing has become an absolute fantastic cutter. And it's like right now, I mean, it'll just pull hair right off of me. I mean, it's quick, man. It gets through material so incredibly fast. And the edge geometry on this now is absolutely superior to just about any other knife that I have. And that's really reminded me how important geometry is. It's just as important as the blade steel that you're choosing. And when I put this together, it really wasn't about chasing a mirror polish, which I've been known to do, and I've put a mirror polish on several of my blades. This one was really more about maximizing the performance, and I certainly think that it was worth it. And if I could go back and do all this again with the mods, if you handed me a brand new Crewwear Smock tomorrow and let me do whatever I wanted to, I would make a lot of the same changes. I would probably change the finish. I would try something new there. I would probably change out the scales, maybe try some different hardware, different color options. But I would definitely put the same jimping on it and the same edge geometry. So this knife, it's certainly in the top 5 favorite of my production folders. I've got over a couple hundred knives at this point, and I've got customs and mid-techs and production. And this thing isn't trying to dethrone my Koenig or Grimsmo or replace my Holt in any way. It wasn't built for that. But what it does do is sit very comfortably in my top 5 of production knives. And this is Spyderco made a great foundation, and some of the aftermarket options that are out there certainly gave me the opportunity to make the perfect knife for me. And so the project itself overall has reminded me that the best knife isn't always the most expensive knife. Sometimes it's the knife that solves your problems, and every modification that I made solved mine. The pocket clip served the carry. The hardware was for the aesthetics, and the jimping for the grip and control, fidgetiness and fun. Removing the detent and adding the bearings, was all about just having that rapid fidgeting action there. The blade change, the reprofiling, all about performance and my cutting experience, and I absolutely love it. Looking forward to doing some more modifications in the future. I'm getting long-winded, so let me wrap this up. If you own a smock, have you modified it? If you don't own one, what modifications would you make first? And let's have a conversation down in the comments. And as always, Sam and I truly appreciate you joining along and in this journey with us as we go to develop our company. And we certainly enjoy walking out life together. So do me a favor, hit that like and subscribe button, and we'll see you on the next one.